So next up, we're going to talk about JSON. JSON is a kind of a formatting files for between the developers who work with JavaScript, Python, or other programming languages, and it stands for JavaScript object notation. And you simply use this one for exchanging files between the different programming languages, or whether you want to save a file, you want to save some data in some kind of a file, rather than writing it inside of the file like a TXT file. So this way you can create a kind of a connection between the human and computer. So because the JSON format is human readable and also can be used so simply inside of Python, or it can be used inside of JavaScript or other programming languages, it is very popular. And also it is a kind of a database, not the database itself, but it is kind of a database you can create for your programs and save it somewhere inside of your computer and make it work. So if you want to know what is the format of JSON, it is so much like the dictionaries that we have worked on. So if I open up the dictionary file, as you can see, we have this new dictionary, and the JSON format is somehow the same as a dictionary, but JSON file can also contain the sets and different kinds of arrays or collections, such as sets. It can be the list, or it can be other different kinds of collections or arrays. Or it can also even contain a kind of a variable, a string number. But most of the time we use JSON for creating this kind of data, which is a very big one and contains a lot of information about different people and the different items of the people and so on. So this way we can save so much data related to users, related to different people. We can pack and unpack these JSON files, or we can convert them from JSON to dictionary or dictionary to JSON, and the difference is very small. So by adding the apostrophes between over these brackets, we can change it to JSON, or we can use loads method in order to convert the JSON file to a dictionary or Python readable format. So generally, if I want to start working with this kind of format, I can create a new Python file and call it let's not call it JSON, because we have a module called JSON and we're going to use it, and then it's going to bring some problems and errors for us. So I can write JSON underline modification .py, and first of all we're going to import JSON. So you're going to use this kind of file format a lot, and I really recommend you not to use text files, because it's going to make your codes much harder. Notice that in JavaScript we also have a method called parse, which is the same as loads in Python. So I'm going to go line by line and explain what all of these concepts are. First of all, let me copy one of the dictionaries that we have had on the dictionary part of our tutorial. For example, this one is a very complex kind of a dictionary. I can bring it here to JSON file or JSON Python file, and okay, here is a dictionary, but I can change it to a JSON object. So I can write JSON underline object, save this one, and also I can write apostrophes and then close the apostrophe. So here, because all of these are not in the same line, we're going to face a problem. So let me write something simpler, or I can add 3 of this. Let's see if that works. Okay, this one works just the way that we wanted. This is the same kind of strategy we used for strings, where we had multiple lines. It does also work for creating the JSON file. So we have 3 apostrophes. This one is a JSON object. This is really much like the same way as dictionaries, with the difference that it is inside of an apostrophe. So anyway, this is kind of a string. So the kind of a string that we can save it on a JSON file. And creating a JSON file is pretty much like creating the files that we learned how to create using the file handling. So we can create a file and we can save this inside of a JSON file. So to do that, I can write with open, and here instead of a quotation mark, I can write JSON file dot JSON, and then the method can be W for writing and creating the file. And then here I can write, also I need to write as F, and then F dot write. Inside of parentheses, I can write the JSON object. JSON object. Okay, that's it. Let's see if it does create the file for us. So here, no such file or directory in my folder. Why is that happening? As F JSON file. So we have no such thing as folder. Okay, because we are in the last file, edit text of our last tutorial. So here we haven't run this anytime. So JSON modification.py. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, we've created a JSON file, .json. As you can see, this is very interesting. On VS Code, a JSON file format is shown with these curly brackets. So if I go inside of it, you can interestingly see the dictionary that you wanted to see. Very interesting. So here you've successfully created a very beautiful kind of JSON file. And here you've easily turned a kind of data that you've got inside of your Python file into a JSON file. So imagine that you want to read from this JSON file and you want to again convert it back to a kind of a dictionary, so that you can then read different values of the keys inside of this JSON file and consequently inside of this dictionary. So for example, you've got a JSON file from somebody else or some other codes written in JavaScript. So then you have a Python code that you want to read different data from the kind of data that you've got from the JavaScript codes, for example, a kind of a web application. So here, because they're stored inside of the JSON file, you can read from the JSON file and then you can read from the different values of different keywords of that dictionary which is inside of the JSON file. So for example, we want to know the email of the first person inside of this database or JSON file. So here in this tutorial, if I say database, I don't mean the actual database like MySQL or MongoDB or so on. We're going to talk about those databases, but here I mean the kind of data that we want to store somewhere inside a file, or to create a kind of data exchange between different programming language files such as JavaScript and Python. So anyway, let us read from the JSON file. So with open JSON file, and then here we can write R, and then we can create a new file called data contents, and then inside of it I can write f.read. So we've got data contents, and suppose that we want to print out, for example, the email of William. So here we've got William as the first key. So I can write data contents, and the first key is William. Before all of that, we can print data contents as well. So before reading from this specific part of the dictionary, we can print out data contents. Let me comment this one for now. Let's see if this one prints out the kind of file we're looking for, the kind of data we're looking for. So as you can see, the dictionary has been printed out just the same as we wanted, and very beautifully, just as it is inside of the JSON file, the very same format with the very same kind of style. So here I also want to fetch some kind of data from this one. So some of the APIs you get from the internet. So for example, you want to know a price of the cryptocurrency, then you go to CoinMarketCap website, you get an API code, and after running all of the code, you will get a kind of a dictionary from all of the data inside the CoinMarketCap, and then you will be given a kind of a JSON file which tells you about all of the data. But then you want to get specific data. For example, you want to know the market cap of Ethereum, and then you can use the very same method. For example, you will look at the JSON file, and then you will see that it has one of the keys is Ethereum, and then one of the keys is the market cap. So you go to Ethereum and the market cap. Here just the same, we can write William, then after that we can one of the keys is email. So here I can write email. Let me check if the spelling is correct for both of them, and there we go. So we have William and email. So let's see if it returns the kind of data I'm looking for. Also, let's comment data contents, not to be mixed up with this kind of data. So if here we face an error, let's see what it is. So string indices must be integers. Here probably we need to first, maybe we need to use some numbers for telling it what kind of data we're looking for. So let us print out data contents one more time, or maybe we can use this one here. So here we've got William, and we've got different key values. So it's not very much different from the kind of dictionary that we had. Here we get to the next thing that you need to notice. So when we read from the JSON file here, JSON file that we've got here, we need to do something else. We need to parse the JSON file. So here, this is the JSON format that we've printed out, and this is a string, not a dictionary. So as a result, this is just data content is a string type. If I print out the type of data contents, you will see that it's not a dictionary, it's a string. So as a result, this one will not give you the kind of data that you're looking for. So you need to parse or load the JSON file into a dictionary or into a file that is Python readable. So we call this process parsing JSON, and this is the name that has been given because in JavaScript we use the parse method in order to read from a JSON file and convert it into JavaScript readable format. Here we use alternatively we use loads method. So we use loads and loads data content data, and here we use data contents dot loads, and we can put it inside another variable. So for example, dictionary, we can call it dict, and then we can fetch the kind of data we're looking for inside of the dictionary by calling volume and then specifying volume in email. Actually here I need to write data contents inside of these parentheses and write json.loads. So this is a function, not a method. json.loads, and it will load the JSON out of the data contents and assign it to the variable dict. So also notice that if you have a kind of error inside your JSON file, you will face an error here as well. So the reason we had got an error is that here we had an error about true or false. I removed that one related to true or false inside of this marriage. So I will tell you how to write true and false inside of a JSON object. But anyway, here you can specify William in email, William's email inside of a dictionary that we've got. So to sum up here, we have created a JSON object here, as you can see, and here we have created the JSON file and write all of the JSON objects inside of that file. Then we've opened up the JSON file and converted and read from that JSON file and then convert it into a kind of a dictionary. So we've parsed JSON or used the loads method, loads function from the JSON module, and then we have a dictionary that we can specify different items and different keywords and then read from it. So here Python create JSON modification, that's py, and as you can see we've got all of these data about William printed out. So if I save this file and run it, you will see that so before this I had printed out the dictionary itself. Let me cut all of these data, Control X, and run it. As you can see we've got, also you need to save this one. As you can see we've got should get the dictionary. So what is the problem here? Okay, we have no errors inside of the JSON file. Original exception was line 32, dictionary JSON loads. Okay, we have an extra parentheses. There we go, we have the JSON file as a result of printing a dictionary. So let me paste in the keywords, and as you can see, william@gmail.com, it is the William's email. So here let us also print out the entire dictionary, the entire JSON file. As you can see, it has this kind of format because it's a string. If I print out the dictionary itself, you will see that it is not like that format. So print dictionary, print it out, you will see that it has changed its format to a kind of a dictionary that can be printed out in Python, and it's Python readable, so you can specify the email of William and print it out. Just as easy as that. Another thing to notice about JSON files is that, for example, here I've used 3 apostrophes or 1 apostrophe you can write for a simple run, but actually here we have json.dumps for creating a JSON. So imagine that this one was a dictionary. Okay, so here this is a dictionary. I can instead write dictionary, and then I can define JSON object this way: JSON underline object equals json.dumps, and then here using this function you can convert this dictionary into a JSON file, and this one will also create the kind of JSON file you're looking for. So without writing a JSON file, you can use json.dumps, but you also need to create the file using this with open as well. So this one will only create the object which is of the JSON format, and using this with statement we can create the kind of file that contains the JSON object. So this json.dumps will create a kind of a string that contains all of these dictionary objects. But notice that, as I said earlier, it does not have to be a dictionary. It can be a set, it can be a list, it can be a tuple, it can be a variable like a name, a string, or a number, or integer, float, whatever. But generally we use JSON for dictionaries. So here we go. Let's see what happens here. As you can see, again we have created the JSON file, but this time with a bit different format this way. So it is not in this style that we had written, but if you want to keep this style, you can write it this way. You can put 3 apostrophes at the beginning and 3 apostrophes at the end, and you can actually go the method that does not use dumps function, json.dumps. But this is much more common, and coders will understand this much better, but really not a difference in the execution. There are also times that you want to set the kind of a style that I told you earlier. So for example, you want to have different indentations and you want to change the style of this. You can also do it with the help of the Python codes. And to do that, we can simply change this or add a kind of method or attribute inside of this dumps function. So here I can add indent, number of indents that we're going to use inside of this dictionary. So we have 1 indent, 2 indent. We also have a dictionary inside of a dictionary, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as a result here, I can write 4. Let's save this one and see what happens here. As you can see, we've got the format we had been looking for. So let me open up the JSON file, and as you can see here, we have the kind of indentations that we were looking for, and it's just the same as the kind of dictionary that we've written. It is the kind of ideal JSON file that is much more human readable compared to this one that has been printed out inside of our terminal. So if you look inside of this one that I've highlighted, you will find the next person very hard. So we have William, who is the next, and here is the James, but I found it by looking into the dictionary, and suppose that is a very much longer dictionary. For example, it's a dictionary about all of the coin market cap coins, and it's very difficult in order to find for example the market cap of a certain cryptocurrency that is not the first one. So using this kind of indentations inside of the JSON files will help you find the items that you're looking for by just simply looking at the file itself instead of specifying different items. So here you can find James variable, you can find the name, you can find different data, you can even find the dictionaries inside of the dictionaries and so on. And there are also other things that makes the reading much more easier, but this indentation here is the key attribute of the JSON.dumps and makes reading much more human readable. So another attribute is for sorting the keys here, and it is very much useful, especially for the names. So for example, we have a lot of names and we want the names to be in a certain order to be sorted out much more easily. So for example, I want the names to get started with the alphabets from A to Z. So if I sort the keys here and use the sort key attribute, you will see that James will become the first one, the first key, and William will become the second key. So we can sort the keys here, and this one will help us see everything much better inside of the JSON file. So here I can add sort keys attribute and set it equal to true. So by default this one is false. If we set it to true, it will change the kind of sort, change the order of the keys alphabetically. So let me rerun this one. As you can see, William has become the second one and James has become the first one. And also it is also true about the other keys. So here, as you can see, we had the dogs at the end, but here the dogs has become the first one of the keys inside James. Also, it is true about William, and is also true about the names. So we had William as the first key, James as the second one, but it has changed the order to first James and second William. And we also have separators, which is used for changing, for example, the column to equal. So for example, here, instead of writing the column, you can write equal, but that is not very much necessary. This is only for making it much more human readable, but here, even with the column, you can pretty much understand everything. So I don't think that part is very much necessary. But if you want to see what that attribute is, you can write separators, and then you can, for example, add dot, or you can add equals. So let's see what happens then. We've got an error, and let's see what that is from, that's coming from. So it says that not enough values to unpack, expected 2 got 1. So here this one says that we need also another separator. So we can add another separator, which is dot. So let me add it. We also need a comma between them. Let's see what happens. Again, we face another one, positional argument follows keyword argument. So we need to put these two inside the parentheses. And let's see if we have any other errors. Save the code and rerun it. So again, we've got another error, expecting column delimiter line 2 column 12. So this is referring to line 34. It is not part of adding the separators, but this is part of reading from the dictionary of the JSON. So when we were parsing the JSON, we faced an error. And so let us look at the JSON file. As you can see, instead of the columns, we've got equal, but I really do not recommend this way of adding separators. This is only it is going to make it human readable, but it may bring us a lot of other problems so that we need to debug. So actually this is debuggable. We can change it to another format and read it. but I recommend using columns instead of equal and using commas instead of dots. So let me remove this attribute. I do not recommend using it. It is only for certain circumstances and no more. Anyway, let's save the code and rerun it. And we've got the kind of result we've been looking for, and we're now looking for trouble. So column is the best way, but the attribute related to sort key is very good because it helps you find the kind of keys that you're looking for much better, especially much easier and faster, especially in the circumstances we have a very long dictionary, a very long JSON file, and it's very also useful to have indentations inside of our JSON file.